Here's everything you need to know in order to start making music in FL Studio. Let's hop right in and get to it. Okay, so here in FL Studio, you really have 4 main pages that you need to become familiar with, and they're all intertwined and work together. You can access all 4 of these pages at the top of the FL Studio window. The first page is going to be the playlist, and you see up here at the top, I have it highlighted in orange. I'm going to go ahead and click this tab, and it's going to open up the playlist. The playlist is where you're going to arrange your beat and kind of build your song. You want to think of the playlist as like the canvas of your whole entire project. The playlist is also where you record things like vocals, guitars, anything coming from an external input. The next page in FL Studio is going to be the piano roll. So you see up here at the top, it's highlighted in orange right next to the playlist. I'm going to go ahead and click that and it's going to open up the piano roll. The piano roll is where you're going to build your instrument loops. You have melodic control over your melodies and your bass lines here in the piano roll. Next, you have the channel rack, and this is where you're going to build your drum patterns. And then lastly, you have the mixer, and this is where you can mix your audio, control volumes, panning, and add effects through your audio plugins. Things like EQ, compression, reverb, distortion can all be added to your audio through the mixer. So let's go ahead and quickly go over each of these pages more in depth and show you how to use them. So coming back here to the channel rack, this is where you're going to load your drum sounds. And you can see here that it already comes loaded with stock sounds. You have a kick drum, a clap, a hi-hat, and a snare. Now, all you really need to do in order to build drum patterns is just to click these little boxes here in the channel rack wherever you want the drum sound to hit at. So I'll just go ahead and draw in a quick drum pattern right here. Now, a quick tip is if you actually hit the wrong box, you can just go ahead and right click that box and it's going to delete that note. Now, another tip, and this is actually really helpful to get your hi-hats in a groove really quickly, is you can come over here to the drum sound. So we're going to select the hi-hat, we're going to right click it, and you can actually pre-fill out the drum pattern. So I'm going to select fill each 2 steps, and it just already filled in that drum pattern for me. Now, obviously you can change the hi-hats to be how you want them, but that's just a quick way to get something going. So the last thing we're gonna do is add in the snare drum, and we'll just kind of do that to fill in the beat. So let's go ahead and take a listen to what we have. So up here at the top of the FL Studio window, you have the tempo control. So you'll see that it's set at 130 beats per minute. This is going to control how fast or how slow your song's tempo is. So for this tutorial, let's go ahead and click and drag it to 120 beats per minute. Now coming back down here to the channel rack, you'll see that each sound has 2 small knobs next to it. The right knob is a gain or a volume control. So you can control the volume of your drum sound with this knob right here. And the left knob is going to control the panning of this drum sound. So you can pan it all the way to the left, all the way to the right, or anywhere in between. On any parameter in FL Studio, you can right click and you can select reset and put it back to its original default setting. Every sound in the channel rack also has its own mute button. Now, if you want to load your own custom drum sounds in the channel rack, it's very simple to do. Up here in the top left of FL Studio, select Options and go to File Settings. Now, all you need to do is click this folder icon right here and then select the folder in which you saved your drum kits to. So for me, I already had this set up, and you'll see right here at the very top, I have my drum kits folder selected. So you'll see over here on the left side of the FL Studio window, this is the file browser, and this is where you're going to find the drum kit folder that you just set up. Right here is the drum kit folder, so I'm gonna go ahead and select that, and it's gonna open up all of the custom drum kits that I have saved in that folder. Let's go ahead and find a new kick drum. So here in the 808 Mafia drum kit, I'm gonna select kicks. You can click on each individual sound in the drum kit, and the browser will play a preview of that sound. So whenever you find one that you like, all you need to do is click and drag that sound over here to the channel rack and place it wherever you want. So now we replace the kick drum that we already had in the channel rack with a new kick drum. So the pattern that we created will stay the same, but the actual sound that we're using is going to be the one that we chose from over here in the browser. So let's go ahead and replace all of our sounds with custom sounds from over here in these drum kits. And you can put as many new drum samples and sounds in the channel rack as you need in order to make your beat. Now, if you want more timing control of when your drums hit, instead of using these little boxes right here in the channel rack, you can right click the sound. So here on the hi-hat, I'm gonna right click it and you can select piano roll. So now we can go ahead and close out the channel rack. So this is gonna bring us to the piano roll. And if I scroll up and down, I'll find that my hi-hats are already loaded here in the piano roll that I had already pre-created in the channel rack. Now at the top left of the piano roll, we can select this magnet icon right here, and it's gonna give you different options and controls for the grid of the piano roll. So you see all these lines right here? This is where you can actually place notes. So if we want to be a little bit more precise, we can change the grid. So I'm gonna select 1/6 of a step, and you can see here that it gave me more lines to put my notes down on for the piano roll. So this is good for doing things like hi-hat rolls, snare fills, anything that's happening very quickly. You're gonna want to have more control than the channel rack is gonna give you. So let's go ahead and draw in a quick hi-hat roll here at the end of our pattern. So all you have to do is just click on the line and it's gonna add our note. Now, for the most part, the piano roll is going to be used for things that have melodic tones. So 808s, virtual instruments, keyboards, synthesizers, anything of that nature. This is where you're going to build your chord progressions and have things changing notes. Because you see over here on the left side of the piano roll, it's an actual piano where each line corresponds to a note on the piano. Whereas on the channel rack, it's only the timing that you have control of. So in order to demonstrate the capabilities of the piano roll, let's go ahead and load something like a synthesizer. And there's two separate ways to do this. First, over here in the browser on the left side of the FL Studio window, you can select plugin database and select generators. Here it's going to give you a few different plugin options to choose from, and I already have mine pre-organized, so I'm going to select music production, and a good FL Studio stock plugin to use for building melodies is going to be Flex. So we're going to go ahead and click and drag Flex over here into the channel rack. So now you'll see that Flex has been loaded here in FL Studio, and it's also loaded right here in the channel rack. So in order to open up Flex and close it, you just have to select it from the channel rack. Now you can also use the browser search bar down here at the bottom of the browser and type in whatever you're trying to find in the browser. Now, the other way to get it into the channel rack is to click this top left drop-down menu in the channel rack and select add one. And now here are all of your plugins that you can load into the channel rack. So just to demonstrate this, we'll come back down to music production and I'll select FL Keys. And now FL Studio's stock keyboard plugin is loaded into the channel rack. So now that we have our instrument loaded in the channel rack, let's just go ahead and click the plugin and open up our library of sounds to choose from. I'm gonna go ahead and keep it simple. I'm gonna select Essential Pianos, and I'm just gonna go ahead and click the Grand Piano. And if you have a MIDI keyboard hooked up to your computer, you can go ahead and just play the MIDI keyboard and kind of browse through these sounds in order to preview what they sound like. Now, if your MIDI keyboard is not working when you plug it into your computer, you might need to enable it inside FL Studio. In order to do that, just come up here to the top left of the FL Studio window, select Options and MIDI Settings. Down here under Inputs, you just want to select your keyboard and then select Enable. And now you see that the green power button is lit up, and that means that your keyboard is enabled. So coming back over here to the channel rack, let's go ahead and select our grand piano and right click it and open it up in the piano roll. Now here on the piano roll, you can click and drag the edges to make the piano roll bigger. And then you can use this bar right here at the top to zoom in and zoom out. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is where you can build your chord progressions or whatever loop that you'd like. So at the top of the piano roll window, you're gonna have all of your tools right here in the toolbar. Now, this pencil icon right here is gonna be the draw tool, and this is what I use the majority of the time. When the draw tool is enabled, all you have to do is just click and drag your notes into the piano roll. You can click and drag them up and down to the desired piano note. You can also click and drag a note to extend the length of the note. Now down here at the bottom of the piano roll is going to be the velocity, and this is basically controlling or simulating how hard you're hitting down on each note like you would on an actual keyboard or piano. So you can click and drag up or down, and if you go all the way to the top, that's going to simulate a really hard hit piano note. And then when you drag it down to the bottom, that's going to be a very soft hit piano note. Now, another tool that you have up here at the top of the toolbar is going to be the slice tool. And you can use this to cut notes and then come back over here to the draw tool. And now you've created two separate notes. Now you also have the select tool. So you see right here, when this is enabled, it's going to allow me to click and select notes here in the piano roll. And the ones that I've selected are highlighted in red. So if you wanted to copy and paste a bunch of notes at one time or just one note, just use the select tool to highlight it in red. And then a quick shortcut on the Windows keyboard is going to be Control-C to copy and then Control-V to paste. And now you see that it created a copy of all of the notes that I had selected. So this also works good for deleting a bunch of notes at once in the piano roll. So the ones that I have highlighted in red right now, I can just click delete and it takes them away from the piano roll. Now with the draw tool enabled here in the piano roll, all you have to do to delete a note is just right click. Let's go ahead and delete all of these notes from the piano roll. And for the most part, these are the only tools that I really use here in the piano roll. And remember, up here at the top left, you have the magnet icon, and this is going to control your snap to grid or where you can place your notes here in the piano roll. So if you want more control and a tighter grid, just go ahead and experiment with these settings here. So just to demonstrate, I'm going to draw in a loop really quick, just something basic to show y'all the process. And I like to do this when all of the drums are playing in the channel rack. So you can come up here to the top left of the FL Studio window. Now you want to make sure that you're in pattern mode. So you have two options up here next to the play button. You have the song mode and the pattern mode. The pattern mode is going to play all of the sounds and loops that you have created in the channel rack. So right now we're working in the channel rack and the piano roll. So we want to have the pattern mode selected while we're working on our loops. We're going to go over the song mode later. Let's go ahead and press play and build a loop. Okay, so obviously that was a very short loop, but you can build your loops or your bars however long you'd like. Okay, so the last thing in the channel rack that I want to talk about is assigning each of these sounds to a mixer channel. So every sound in the channel rack has a slot to assign it to a mixer track. You see here that the kick is sent to channel 1, the clap is sent to channel 2, the hi-hat is sent to channel 3, and the snare is sent to channel 4. So now that we've created a piano loop, let's go ahead and send this to channel 5. And since we're not going to be using the FL Keys plugin, I'm going to right click and select delete. And then I'll also do the same thing for the snare drum number 3. So now that we've sent each of these sounds to its own mixer track, let's go ahead and open up the mixer. And here in the mixer, we can see that there's a few different things going on. So each channel has its own individual volume fader right here to control the volume of the sound. Every channel also has its own panning knob to pan the sound left or right. They also have their own little green button right here to mute the sound. Down here at the bottom, you have a stereo knob. So all the way to the left makes your sound more wide. And then all the way to the right makes it more mono. And then at the bottom of each mixer track, you see that there is a wire coming out and it's routed to the master channel over here on the left side of the mixer. So the master channel is where all of your individual tracks join together and form one piece of audio. Now coming back over here to the individual mixer tracks, you'll see that each one has its own plugin effects rack over here on the right side of the mixer. Each track has 10 slots for you to load your plugins. This is where you can load your plugins like reverb, distortion, EQ, and compression. Now, FL Studio comes with a lot of these plugins already loaded with it, but you can also use third-party plugins as well. Now, all you need to do in order to add a plugin to a mixer track is just select the slot in which you want to add that plugin to, and then it's going to pull up all of your plugins that are available to add. So let's go ahead and add the Fruity Parametric EQ number 2. This is the stock EQ plugin that comes loaded with FL Studio. Now, in order to have third-party plugins available to use, you just need to download them onto your computer and then come up here to the top left of FL Studio and select Options and Manage Plugins. Now, all you need to do is select Find Installed Plugins on the top left of this little window that popped up, and it's going to search for all of the plugins that you have downloaded on your computer. Now, if you have trouble finding the plugins that are downloaded on your computer, just make sure that you have the right plugin search paths right here, and that way FL Studio knows which folders to look in. And then you also have some custom search controls down here in the bottom left. Now, coming back over here to the mixer, up here in the top left, you can select this drop-down menu right here, and this is gonna give you a few different selections to choose from as far as the display of the mixer. So I like mine to be set to extra large. Now you can also right click any mixer track and select rename. So we're gonna go ahead and rename mixer track number 1 to Kick. Now you can also right click and change the color. So I'm gonna change this to red. Now, as far as controlling the volume of your sound, you can obviously use the volume fader here in the mixer, but what I prefer to do is here in the channel rack, I like using the small volume control knobs right here next to each individual sound. Now you can also click the sound here in the channel rack and you'll see that there is a volume control here in the settings page that is pulled up. Now this is the exact same volume control as the one here in the channel rack. You'll see as I move it, it's also moving the one in the channel rack. So when I'm making the beat, I'm simultaneously getting a rough mix going before I even come to the mixer. And then I'll just use the volume faders here in the mixer to make final adjustments and small tweaks to the sound. And that's pretty much it for the mixer. Obviously, there's more functionality than that, but I just want to cover the basics. Now, lastly, let's come back over here to the playlist and cover everything you need to know about the playlist in FL Studio. So this is where we are going to arrange our patterns that we've built in the channel rack. Now you see over here on the left side of the playlist, we have our pattern number 1. So we can go ahead and click that and drag it over here into the playlist. And now our playlist has the pattern that we built. And now with the draw tool enabled up here on the toolbar, we can just click our pattern and now we can drag in new ones, as many as we'd like to arrange our beat. Now the problem with this is it doesn't really give us control over arranging each individual sound, right? Because we want certain sounds coming in and dropping out at different times throughout our song. And we can't really do that when they're all grouped together in one pattern. Now, if we open up the channel rack and then come up here to the top, you'll see that pattern 1 is selected. Now, if we scroll up to pattern 2 or pattern 3, you'll see that none of our sounds have anything selected. All of my loops go away and I'm starting fresh. But if I scroll back to pattern 1, you'll see that everything reappears. So in order to split all of your sounds up after you've built them in a pattern, all you have to do is come up here to the top and right click the pattern that you want to split up, and then come down here to split by channel. And now instead of just having pattern number 1 over here on the left side of the playlist, we have each individual sound that we can click and drag over here into the playlist. So let's go ahead and delete everything that we have here in the playlist so that way we have a clean slate to arrange our beat. I'm gonna come up here to the toolbar and use the select tool to select all of these patterns. And now I'm gonna select delete. Now let's go ahead and select the draw tool so we can draw in our patterns, and I'm gonna start arranging our beat. A quick way to copy and paste is just to select everything that you want to copy and then select Control B. So now that we have everything placed here in the playlist, we can use the draw tool to come over here and right click to delete things from the arrangement. So that way we're bringing things in and out. This is going to make your beat or your song more interesting and keep it from being repetitive. Okay, so in order to take a listen to what you're working on, you need to come back up here to the top left and you want to make sure that now you select song mode. So song mode is going to play back the audio that you have here in the playlist, and pattern mode is going to play back the audio that you have loaded in the channel rack, so the patterns that you have built. So just make sure that song mode is highlighted, and now when we press play, we're going to hear back this arrangement that we have created. Now, if you were listening closely, you might have noticed that the clap was panned all the way to the right speaker. And that's because over here in the mixer, when I was showing y'all how all of these knobs worked, I used the pan knob right here to pan it to the right side. So we just want to right click and reset that so that way the clap is coming directly up the middle. Now, if you want to record vocals or a guitar, anything that has an external input coming into FL Studio, all you need to do is find an open track here in the playlist and then right click, come down to track mode and select audio track. And here it's going to pull up all of the available individual mixer tracks in the mixer. So you want to select a mixer track that has no sound routed to it already. You see up here at the top, the kick drum is already routed to channel number 1. So we just want to make sure that no audio is routed to the insert that we're going to be using to record. So I'm going to select insert number 10. Now you'll see here that it turned this track here in the playlist into an audio track in the mixer. So insert number 10 has now been locked onto this track. And you'll see that it added 3 little icons right here. The first icon lets you select your microphone. So my microphone that I'm using right now is routed to channel number 1. The second icon is where you select whether you want to hear yourself coming through the headphones or the speakers when you're recording. I personally don't like to do that, so I have it turned off right here. But if you do want that, just make sure you select on. And then up here at the top is where you select whether you want to record with effects turned on or off. I personally just want to record the raw audio coming from the microphone, so I select to record just the external input only. So now my microphone is active, and you see right here as I'm talking, the meter is moving. Now all you need to do is make sure that your microphone is armed to record. So this red button right here is going to arm and disarm your track to record. So think of this as engaging and disengaging your microphone. When it's red, it's turned on. This is telling FL Studio that you want to record everything coming through this track. Then up here at the top of the FL Studio window next to the play button, you also have a arm and disarm, and this is for the entire FL Studio window, not just the individual track that we turned on. So you want to make sure that you click and arm FL Studio to start recording whenever you hit the play button. Now, whenever you click this button for the first time to arm FL Studio to record, you may get a dialog box that pops up and asks you what all you want to record. Now, if you don't get this dialog box that pulls up, all you have to do is right click on the arm and disarm button. And here you can select what all you want to record. So you can see here that I have turned on everything. I want to record audio, any notes played on my keyboard, any clips, or any automation. Anytime that I press the record button in FL Studio, I just want it to record everything coming into my computer. I don't want to have to select it individually each time. Okay, so now we are ready to record. Let's go ahead and press play and record something here into the playlist. Test, test. Here you can see my microphone is active and recording. Something else to point out is up here at the top of FL Studio, you have the metronome that you can turn on and off. And this is just going to help you stay on beat if you have trouble, staying with the tempo of your song. Up here, you also have a countdown, and this is just going to give you a 3-second countdown whenever you press record before you actually start recording. So coming back to this audio clip that we just recorded, by default, it's going to be routed to the mixer track that this audio track was assigned to. So if you double click the audio track, you'll see that it's already pre-routed to track number 10. So if you want to send this to another mixer track, all you have to do is click and drag. You can see here in the channel rack that all of your audio recordings are also going to be sent here in the channel rack and stored with the drum sounds. In order to stay more organized in the channel rack, if you don't want to see your audio recordings grouped with the drum sounds, all you have to do is come up here to the drop-down menu and select Unsorted. This will just show you the drum sounds, and then the audio is going to show you your recordings. Or if you want both of them grouped together, just select All. If you want to make a clip shorter in the playlist, all you have to do is use the draw tool and then click and drag the end of the clip to the desired length. And again, just like the piano roll, if you come up here to the magnet icon, you can select which type of grid you want here in the playlist. Now, some other useful information worth sharing is in the audio settings page. Just come up here to the top and select Options, Audio Settings. This is where you can choose which sound drivers you want to use in FL Studio. So if you select this drop-down bar, it's going to pull up all of your drivers. I would suggest using Audio for All, FL Studio Audio, or the driver that comes with your audio interface. Down below this is the buffer length, and this is a big setting that you want to get right. You want to set this as low as possible without causing any problems. If you go too low, you're going to start to get cracks and pops and glitches in your audio. This is going to control the latency in your audio whenever you're recording. I usually have mine set at 512 when I'm making beats, but I will lower this when I'm actually recording audio with a microphone. How long you set your buffer length is dependent on how good your computer is and how it reacts. Now, all of these other settings you can copy if you want, but I'm not going to go over all of the little boring technical details, but I will link another video in the description where I go over these in more depth. Now, the last thing that I want to show you is how to export your song. So whenever you're ready to export, just come up here to the top left, select File, and then select Export, and you can select which type of file type you want to export as. I'm going to select WAV file. Here you can select where you want to export to. I'm going to select the desktop. And this will bring us to the export page. And this is where you have a lot of options here to customize your export. You can choose whether you want to export the full song or just the pattern. Here under tail, you can select how the song ends. So if you want it to end right when the last piece of audio ends, you would select cut remainder. Or if you had like a reverb tail or a delay or an echo playing out, you could select leave remainder. You can choose which file format you want to export. You can select the bit depth, and there's all of these other settings, but I'll spare you from being bored again with all of the technical details. But again, I'll link another video in the description that goes over the export settings. And then really all you have to do is come down here and select start, and it's going to export your song. Okay, so by now I feel like you should be comfortable enough to navigate your way through FL Studio. Now, obviously this software has a lot more capabilities than what I've showed here today, but hopefully I helped you understand the basics to get you headed in the right direction. All right, so that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the content. Please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.